Okay, we're going live. We're starting the stream for Thursday, and today is June 9th. And my goodness, time is flying. I got an email today from the Pacificon people, and they're saying, hey, it's coming up. It's only 4 months away. And I'm going, wait a minute, we're just starting summer, and they're little gathering is in October. So I guess we'll be doing that. I don't know if we'll be going to the Reno Hamvention this year or not. Lots of things have changed. Anyway, welcome. Hello, Augies Worldwide. There are 18 of you so far. I'm Dave Casler, amateur radio call sign KE0OG, here with the live stream. Let's see, William Myers, KA0OG. Hi, Dave and all Augies. Neil Marsh, good evening, all from W7NRM. And Don Z is saying hello from Minnesota, KC0DWZ. Charles Pooley, hi, Dave and all from K6PWC, San Jose, California. But it's warm out there right now. It got up to 97 in Montrose today, and I was up at the airport in Delta flying today, and maybe why my face looks a little red. I think I got some sun. I was practicing landings today and did pretty good. I was kind of pleased with myself. It was a solo flight. Good evening from Victor Alpha 4, Charlie Quebec Delta, Merrill, KK4HFG, hello from Sumter, South Carolina, and says, hope I'm doing well. Thank you. Hope you are also. Neil Marsh, lead time is nice. Yeah, I know. I didn't get the, I forgot last time. After I finish the live stream, I'm supposed to set up the next one, so help me remember that today. Paul Paul Sushariba says, thanks for all you've taught us. Well, I'm trying. I really am. James McDonough, all right, Dave, watching the show from England. Hello, how are you? You guys just had this big jubilee over there. Of course, the Americans are always fascinated by the British royalty. I am told sometimes we are more fascinated than the Brits are, but we certainly are fascinated by that, and we follow all the little news about who Prince Henry waved to and who Prince William's daughter did, you know, whatever. So Carson WQ1I says hello. Red Summit RF says afternoon. Mark, is there a Reno Hamvention this year? I do not know the answer to that question. I am assuming that there will be. There was a Pacificon last year and will be this year. And of course, Dayton was held with 31,000 participants. You may have seen my video on Dayton. I tried to make a slideshow of just as many different things as I could, just so you can see the sheer variety in ham radio. Okay, Southeast Missouri. Let's see here. Don't forget, okay, show. William Myers suggests we subscribe and so on. Please do that. Chuck Schreiber, good evening, Dave and everyone. N5 KVO from super hot South Texas, currently 92. Yeah, we've been having 90-degree weather here too. It was 90 up in Delta this morning, although I would imagine that South Texas is a little more humid. Reggie Love is in the Faroe Islands. Oscar Yankee 1 Romeo. Reggie says it's 2 in the morning there. Mesa, Arizona 110. Ed, K6SDW, Sacramento nearing 100 degrees. And that is an agricultural area, so it will get humid. And I was born in Modesto, not terribly far south from Sacramento. David Ross says, hi, everyone from North Carolina, KX4TE. And Marvin says hello from WA6OLS. K9KDC from Stowe, Pennsylvania. We got within 3 miles of Pennsylvania on our trip. We went up as far as Kirtland, Ohio. That's as far as from home as we got. It's about 1,100 miles. And that's from Dave KX4TE. And Marvin says hello, WA6OLS. K9KDC says, so they're Stowe, Pennsylvania. As a fellow private pilot, I enjoy the sky. I do, very much. And I'm able to solo now, so I've been going up practicing landings and had much better results today than I did a couple days ago. Hi, Dave, 1:47 a.m. in London as I type this. Optical Man Jeff says, hi, Dave, from Sioux Falls, South Dakota, where it is a rainy 68 degrees. Ooh, send some of that rain our way. Mobile, Alabama. Ken is there with a hex beam on the way. Very good. You'll have fun with that. Take a lot of time to set it up carefully. What I had to do finally, it was so big that I put a pole into the ground and cut it off about 2 feet high, so that I could set the center of this hex beam over it and then rotate it around so I could get to all of the different parts that went through it. Let's see, Ray, KAW, DHJDV in Howell, Michigan. There's a lot of Michigans. Ron Horsch, I'm learning how to use a different type of wing on a sailboat. Yes. Great videos. Thanks, Rob, N7RLV in Vashon Island, Washington. William Myers, you'll love the hex beam. Yes, I love mine too. It's actually a lot better than I thought it would be. Paul Sushariba sends $20 to chat funds, or to, well, it's chat revenue according to Google or YouTube. That goes into channel funds. Thank you. Good evening, Dave from Minnesota. Love what you do. From Corey N0ST. Steve Genoway, howdy from South Texas. Hot. And Carl AF0X in Arizona hit 111 today. Yes. I was down there in August a year or so ago, learning how to fly my airplane, and it was that hot every day. Good evening, Dave from Rubicon, Wisconsin, from K9ETE. Steve Genoway says 84 feels like 97 in Portland, Texas, almost as south as you can get and still be in the United States. And James, I'm going to put my, where are my good glasses here, so I can see this. My eyes are not focusing as well as they should. Good evening from KD5QYP. Mike Oswald says, hello, Dave and all the Yogis from wet and dripping Kirkland, Washington. From AA7MO. Well, send some of that water our way, would you please? We are in the middle of what is called extreme drought here. The reservoirs are not going to fill this year. So usually they try to have Ridgeway Reservoir full by July 4th. And then it starts back down again at that point because they've got to send water downstream to the farmers. And what is happening down there now is, was it Lake Powell? They're in Page, Arizona, where they have the dam. And they're trying to keep that flow going. And so they're drawing water from the reservoirs around here. And I don't think our reservoir is going to hit full this year. It usually hits full around July 4th, and then it gradually starts to dwindle as they feed the farmers. Okay, let's see. Congratulations on soloing from Anthony. Thank you very much. Royce, you should know I have a live stream right now. Okay, let's see. Good evening. It's hello, David in August from what? Soloing, yes. Hello from an airliner. Glad its free internet works. Well, very good, KK7EMW. I'm going to have to try taking up in the aircraft a handheld and see if I can contact some people through that. That would be fun. Ken Pooler says, thanks, Dave, for that tip. And I thank you for all the tips you give me. Corey N0ST says, it looks like I'm doing well at landings. I certainly did a lot better today than I did. What I'm doing, I'm soloing. I'm keeping track of that with my GoPro camera. And then I post an unlisted video for him so he can look at my landings and give me ideas and stuff like that. So I've got to get another camera and put it into the cabin and get some audio fed to that from the intercom system. Grant Geiger, hi from Bellevue, North Nebraska. Rainy and warm, KE0OGS. FCC gave me the call sign. Good, your videos helped me get to tech in general. Thanks. And says the S equals to student. Oh, very good. And Grant, congratulations on your tech in general. Reed, my son tested online today for his general with the Alaska VE team. He passed, and I'm a happy dad tonight. Well, Reed, please pass our congratulations on to your son. John Mills, who's Echo Alpha 8 / Golf 4 Sierra Tango Alpha, is in the Canary Islands. It's currently 1:55 a.m. there, and the temp 18 degrees C, and I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit. Let's find out here. 18 CNF. 64. Okay, that's a comfortable temperature. Okay, very good. I hope your son has fun. Very good. Dave, do I remember correctly that you have the MFJ hex beam? I do, as a matter of fact. It was sent to me by MFJ at their expense for me to test, and I've liked the antenna so much. It's kind of one of my permanent-ish antennas out there. We had to go to a lot of trouble to put it up. It's heavy, big. It needs a rotator. So it's up on top of a 20-foot piece of Schedule 40 aluminum pipe. And yes, you can have Schedule 40 in aluminum pipe. So it's very thick-walled, and it's up, and it's guyed very carefully so that the guys are exactly the right distance apart. And we got it just nicely vertical, and we've got the rotator all hooked up, and it works really well. And I had a fair amount of help actually putting the antenna vertical because it's not something one person can do. And a friend of mine made a base for it that we can use some stakes and hook into the ground so it can be lifted up, and that it was, and it works really well, and nice antenna. I like it. Let's see. Randall Rash, thank you. $50 into channel funds there. Thank you very much. I'll try and use that well for the channel. I used channel funds to go to Dayton. I will use them again to go to Pacificon. We're going to Pacificon this year. And I don't know about Reno. We'll see. That's a fairly easy drive for us. It just takes 2 days. We can stop overnight at the KOA in Salt Lake City. Let's see. Thanks for all the informative videos from KR5EEE. Thank you, Randy. William Myers, KE0OG. My hex beam is still sitting on the ground, which makes me sad, but it works wonders. Hope that this coming week I will finally get it on the mast with the rotator. Yeah. The thing is going to be really top heavy as you try to tilt it up. So get some people to help. I think this device that my friend made for me really helped. It's a flat plate steel, 4 holes in it, so you can put stakes down in. And it's got basically a hinge on the thing. The way it works, he's got 2 posts of metal and put a let's see, a bolt all the way through with a nut on the other side. And then we can tilt it up on that and then put another nut in, or bolt in to lock it in place. And it seems very sturdy. It's withstood all our winds. We had some winds exceeding 50 miles an hour here during our windy season in March and April. And it stood up fine. The hex beam also survived in one of our very rare ice storms. Survived that just fine. It was all droopy, but then it sprung back into position when the stuff melted. Okay. Anli's bought a semi-working Yaesu FT101 EE or EE from a local ham who was real sick. Radio receive single sideband on some bands. Idea who can fix or teach me how to fix it. It weighs 35 pounds. Yeah, it's a heavy radio, so shipping is expensive. There is a magazine, and let me just put it on here so you can, I can write it out and you can see it. Well, let's use this purple here. The magazine is called Electric Radio. And the website is ERRMAG.com. Okay, electric radio, and I'll show you what an electric radio looks like. Okay, this is a recent electric radio, and it is designed for people who love old radios, specifically with tubes and things, which your 101 EE I think has a tube driver and 2 tube finals. But this goes way back, and they've got all kinds of stuff in here. And they also have wonderful classified ads. And in the classified ads, people, if you are a subscriber to Electric Radio, you're entitled to 1 free ad per month. Or actually per issue. They publish 6 times a year now. Okay, so this is something that you could look at, Electric Radio, because it's for people who like to deal with the old radio. So, and that's something that you can take a peek at. Okay, so let's go back to the live stream. It's now 8 or 7 o'clock. I want to talk about something kind of serious. We had an incident. It was in the papers today of a ham radio operator who has given the service a real black eye. I didn't get his name or call. I suppose it's not important, but he lived up in California on the, I think on the eastern side of the Sierra Nevada. So in the area of Lone Pine and stuff like that, US 395, I would assume it was in that area. I may be wrong. But he decided to use his little, I don't know what radio he had, but probably one of the Chinese radios that will transmit anywhere. And he decided he was going to help the firefighters by telling them about conditions at the airport. And he totally blew it because, one, the firefighters have their own way of telling about conditions at the airport. They have a command structure that follows a FEMA document on how this command structure works and how things are reported. And he just decided, well, golly, this is an emergency. I'm going to get out my radio and communicate. Well, he's looking at $35,000 in fines, and that's from the FCC. Now, what the fire department and the police and sheriff do, I think, is still open, because he could get jail time for doing something like this. This was really poor judgment on this ham's part. You have to remember, obey the law, and what he did was flat illegal. The fire people up there, like I said, follow the FEMA mandated command structure for incidents and so on. It's been regularized across the country so that people who are performing in emergency services and so on have a standard way of doing things. There are standard messages. There's a standardized command and control structure. There are standardized ways that they communicate with each other. And yes, ham radio can be a part of this if negotiated in advance. Okay? If negotiated in advance. But a novice neophyte who tries to jump into the middle of an emergency when communications are already established, I'm not talking about the initiation of an emergency where nobody knows about it. In that case, you're a hero to get yourself on the radio. But in a case like this where the command center was already constructed and so on, he stepped in the middle of this thing, disrupted communications, and created a hazard to himself and to other people. The police, or I guess it was the sheriff, very quickly went to where he said he was, found him, and shut him down because he was interfering. Now, this says a lot about people who may feel that they're helping or may want to help, but are stepping outside of established boundaries. I strongly recommend that if you wish to become involved in the emergency communications aspect of ham radio, which is one of the fundamental purposes for ham radio, that you consult with your local ARES, that's an Amateur Radio Emergency Service, or RACES, Radio Amateur Civil Emergency Service. Often it's hard to tell those two apart. And all of this communication stuff is done at the county level. So you can contact your county and find out if something's already set up. And there very likely will be. There are all sorts of memoranda of agreement, and you need to be aware that inserting yourself into an emergency without proper training and authorization makes things worse, not better. So this ham is going to pay a terrible price for it. And unfortunately, it became very public. It's made the national news about this ham operator guy who interfered with an emergency. The FCC people say that the reason they hit him with such a large fine, which was basically the largest fine they could, was because of the egregious nature of what he was doing. He was interfering with legitimate emergency communications by using a frequency for which he did not have any authorization. using one of these little Chinese radios that allows you to transmit out of band, and adds to my argument why I think amateur radio gear should only be allowed to transmit on amateur radio frequencies. Because if there is a previous MOU with the firefighting or emergency response organizations and so on, those frequencies are all laid out and the ones that you should use. And if they're making use of ham radio, they'll have a ham radio operator at headquarters who can take your call. They, of course, know you in advance because you've exercised with them and so on. So I was dismayed to find such a negative article about ham radio splashed in national print news. It just was horrifying to me. Well, enough said about that. Okay. In an emergency, if he had had an emergency, for example, he had been, say, hit by a car and was lying in a ditch, and the only people he could raise were the fire people, yeah, that's fine. But to call them up to show his self-importance by telling them the situation at the airport was, besides being illegal, immoral, and fattening, was dangerous. It took away from their communications. It disrupted their command and control system. Very disappointed, as you can tell. Okay, enough said. All right, let's keep on going down. At least the FT101E isn't a R390. Well, there are people who will repair R390s for you. And I hope to get a close-up of one sometime soon and show you the incredible, intricate gearing system inside there that allowed accurate tuning down to the kilohertz without, it was all done with slugs in coils, not variable capacitors. It was amazing. Okay, the FT101EEE was a major advance in ham radio. It was, I think, the first of the FT101 series that had a digital readout for frequency. So now we're starting to get down into the sub-kilohertz range. Of course, my 7300 here will get down to the point where it will give you into the down to the hertz, which is really nice. Okay, greetings from the UK from 1 million volts. William Myers, KE0OG sends $25 to chat revenue. Says, Dave, I have some good friends coming over to help me install the hex beam. I will send pictures once it's up if you don't mind. Actually, what I really would like from you is not only pictures of it up, but pictures of it being constructed and pictures of the group putting it up, which I think would be fun to show. In fact, if you send me enough pictures, I'll make a whole video on it. And what brand hex beam are you getting? There are quite a few people who make them. I saw several at Dayton. Let's see. Steve Genoway said we got hurricane force winds, 74 plus miles per hour on a nice spring day. Prefer antennas that can handle Cat 3 hurricane winds, 111 to 129 miles per hour. Oh my goodness. There are, amongst the tower manufacturers, sort of a desire to build what they call hurricane towers. Towers you can put up that will withstand a hurricane and not get blown over. And we certainly need that. Cat 5 hurricane is, well, not much can withstand that, but a Cat 3 certainly. Nathan King says they found a 20-meter rock mite. That's a little, it's an SDR, isn't it? Not if it was 18 years ago. Haven't seen it in about 15. They powered it up this morning very carefully, and it worked. About halfway through the alphabet. Well, very good. Very good. The tell me what the rock mite does. Is that a QRP rig? I'm thinking QRP rig. Now, the problem with old radios is component aging, especially capacitors, to some extent resistors, and some of the older electrolytics and oil-filled capacitors, you just routinely, if you bring up a radio very, very slowly on voltage, you might be able to reform the capacitors. I don't know that they're guilty of any gross sins, but they need reforming anyway. And that allows, see, the way electrolytic capacitor works, it has to be formed, and this is done at the factory, which puts the right deposits on the right plates so it'll have the right polarity. But you can do that on that, if you've got an older radio like that FT101EE, which is kind of on borderline about how old it is, if you get much older than that in the old tube radios, you almost do a recapping or replacing capacitors as a standard procedure before you apply power to it. The 101EE might be able to do that okay, I think. Nathan Kring in Morse code, and look forward to Soda Pota fun. Good. Very good. Okay, so you're learning CW, or you did know CW and you're recovering it. So there. Now, Steve Genoway says he still has one course to finish for ARRL. I'm going to show you something here. So let's see if I can do it, because I was having trouble earlier this week. We're going to go to the Learning Center at the ARRL. We're going to do the Learning Center here, okay? And log in. See if I can log in. Log in. Oh, come on. Log in. Let me log in. Log in. There we go. I had trouble with this. They've redone their web resources. Okay, if you look in the Learning Center, once it decides that it's ready for us, there was a time when Bill, the Microsoft guy, Bill Gates, was doing a demonstration of something that Windows, whatever version it was at the time that he was talking about, could do for them. The Windows device that he was working on blue screened on him. So that was, I don't know if this is up. Let's see what we can do. View all courses. No, it's not opening. There are three learning paths: electronics and technology, emergency communications, and on the air. If you go to the on the air section in here, this is where you find the licensing courses right here. Now, the technician licenses are also available on the ARRL regular YouTube channel, so you don't have to go into this behind the paywall thing. But the general and the extra licenses you need to be an ARRL member for. But if we look at this other learning path, emergency communications, you'll find that there's a lot of things. Intros, EC001, Intro to Emergency Communications, is a FEMA course. EC016 is, again, for emergency communications management. There were a bunch of presentations at the ARRL National Convention in Orlando that are here. And there are emergency communications webinars that are available. I thought I had signed in here. Okay. But and there are, of course, other things in here on understanding electronics and so on. Okay. So what I'm pointing out and what he pointed out here is that there is coursework that will tell you how to do this. Now, the reason this makes sense is because one thing that FEMA has done, or the Department of Homeland Security has done, is standardize across the United States how emergency organizations are organized by telling them this is your command structure, these are the names of the positions, these are what each of these people do, here is the software that you can use, on and so on and so on and so on. So everybody in the United States, when we're dealing with emergency services, is all singing out of the same hymnal. And hams who wish to participate in this need to take the two FEMA courses. One that gives you the generalized overview, and the other that tells you about the command and communication structure. And these are available. They're easy to get. You don't have to pay a whole bunch of money to do them. In fact, I think they're free. So I would highly recommend that if you're interested in emergency communications, go ahead and take these courses and pass them and get your certificate and so on, and then join ARRL. Okay, let's see. Okay, greeting William Myers. KE0OG sends $25 to channel revenue. And tells us, okay, I caught that, is putting his hex beam up. Let's see if I can figure out where Dave, I assume this guy didn't take a hint to stop when he got on their frequency. Could have stopped the situation from getting into the 35K fine. Apparently they got into the 35K fine very soon because the guy wouldn't get off. They had to send the sheriffs, I think more than one, to shut him down, to get him to get off. I don't know. A little humility goes a long ways if you don't know what you did and move on. Okay. Dave, I got the 1848 on the way, and it's due tomorrow. Good. Chip McGinnis says, thanks for being there, Dave. Your knowledge is much appreciated. Thank you. Nathan Crane says, the Rock Mind is a QRPCW transceiver kit. I vaguely remember that now. Rock, in this case, I think means the crystal. It's crystal controlled, if I recall. William Myers, KE0OG says he purchased a K4 KIO hex beam. He says, I watched your build of the MFJ and the K4 KIO seemed to be easier to construct. One of the easiest antennas I've ever constructed is this clothesline cobweb antenna that was made by this guy, 73antennas.com in Australia. You can put the whole antenna together without a single tool. I mean, everything is made so it snaps into place, or you've got a wing nut or something like that. You don't need tools to put it together, and I think that is wonderful. I'm not sure a 2x4 on the noggin would have been loud enough to hint for this guy to get it. And then, unfortunately, I've met people like this. They're sure they're right. By golly, if you want to know if they're right, just ask them, they'll tell you. And I know that the people who were properly using the frequencies know better than to engage this guy in any conversation at all, or even tell him to get off the frequency. They just go find him and get him off. So let's see. Can you talk or do a better video about protecting my SDR Play Duo front end? I assume that's when you're transmitting. MFJ makes a little device specifically for this. And I've got one of the earlier versions of it. It's this. SDR transmit receive switch. It's an MFJ 1708 SDR. And please be sure to get the most current version of this, because this one only provides about 40 dB protection for the SDR radio. So you hook your antenna here, and then it normally goes to the radio and the SDR, but there's a push-to-talk thing here, so when your radio goes into push-to-talk, the SDR is shorted by a relay. Now, that's nice in theory, but it only gives you about 40 dB of protection. In other words, the transmitted signal is reduced by 40 dB. Well, let's see, 100 watts is 50 dBm. Okay, so that means that what gets through is 10 dBms. That's 10 milliwatts. 10 milliwatts of energy from a 100-watt transmitter will get through this thing and into the SDR. That's actually a fair amount of power. So the new one offers a higher reduction. Again, the way that works, you've got the SDR here, antenna, and then your radio, your transmitter. This is for the receiver here, and you must connect the push-to-talk to the push-to-talk switch on the back of your transmitter with an RCA cable, and it takes 12 volts. And it's a very good idea, but it is something you need to be a little bit careful with. Okay, let's see. DX Engineering Protector, if they have that, it would probably be a very good one. DX Engineering, I had a nice chat with them. Sadly, I've had audio problems on all the interviews with them, but we'll get something up on the channel hopefully this week. And the thing about DX Engineering is they're both a retailer and a manufacturer. They like MFJ. MFJ took over Cushcraft and Highgain and so on when they went bankrupt. And DX Engineering is doing the same, like with the butternut antennas. They're still available now. They've done that with several other things. But they do make things like this isolator and so on. And you can call them up and ask about it, and do fine there. Let's see, Con Wilson says, thanks for all the great videos. Good to meet you in Hamvention. Like I said, I think I shook the hands of maybe a couple hundred people at Hamvention who came up to me and introduced themselves. Hey Dave, looking at either the 7300 or the FTDX10. Going for my general and extra really soon. Which one do I recommend? I have some experience on 10 meters in CW lower. I want to introduce you to a page I have on my website, ecasler.com/reference. Okay, this page here is a reference design. The technician license, I never really did get a good one. But here is a good reference station for general and amateur extra. This lists all the different parts and pieces. If you get all of these things, you will have a station that you can be happy with for years. Now, people ask me, what should I get for an HF rig? I used to say, well, that's a highly personal, da-da-da-da-da. But now I say the ICOM 7300. Now, not only did I specify all these parts for a reference station, but as you can see here, I have the reference station. I have the reference station power supply, the reference station rig, the reference station power distribution, and so on. And I even have the reference station antenna, which is the MFJ 2010. Now, understand that the purpose of a reference is precisely that. It is a reference design. It will work. However, you may wish to depart from the reference for whatever reason. You may like the FTDX10 better than the ICOM 7300. Now, I did ask DX Engineering, one of the things that I asked them while, I didn't turn that to the screen, did I? dcasler.com/reference. There's the reference station. And there's the one for general and amateur extra. Okay, and it shows you all the different parts and pieces that you can get. And if you get them, they will work together and you'll have a nice station. Now, most all of these I have reviewed at some point, so I've got a connection to the video where you can see what they are, what they do, and so on. Okay, so this is your reference. Now, like I said, you can depart from it if you want to. I recommend the 7300. The FTDX10 is also a fine radio. I again reiterate my advice that I've given many times, that you do not purchase any equipment for a license you do not yet have. That you wait until you pass your test and then get the equipment. I have seen too many people, and I mean many people, who buy expensive equipment and run into a problem of one kind or another. It could be just having too much trouble with the material, to suddenly getting a new job, or having to move, or having a baby, or the dog eats your book, whatever it may be, that keeps them from getting their license. So please go ahead and get your license, and or at least pass your test before you spend, each of those radios, they're in about the same price class, that it's around $1,000. By the way, I want to mention something that the DX Engineering people mentioned to me. I asked them about the 7300. Nobody has them because they're out of stock due to supply chain issues. This is common among lots of things right now. We live in an age of shortages. We just haven't quite got our heads wrapped around that. We think that if some magic person at the head of government pulls the right string, suddenly there will be plentiful gasoline and the price will go down. No, sorry, that doesn't work that way. And we've got ourselves caught in an inflationary cycle. And again, one little stroke of one little magic wand is not going to fix that. We live in an age of shortages. That's why prices are going up. The economy is overheated. There are not enough people to do the jobs that need to be done, which just turns right around and creates supply shortages. which pushes inflation up. It's a vicious cycle. And it's going to take some serious work to get that under control. And now that's a fact. Who's responsible for it and why? Yeah, that's a political matter. Okay, we'll leave that. Okay. But anyway, I would steer you toward that. Oh, I was going to tell you what DX Engineering told me. Don't wait for them to be in stock. Order one, pay whatever deposit you have to pay, so that you're in line to get one when they come through, and they should be available fairly soon. That's what DX Engineering is doing. They've got their list, and as they get those radios in, they're going to the people on that list. So go ahead and order whatever radio you want, so you're in line to get that thing as it comes. Okay, Ralph Leland says, hi, Dave and everyone, K4TA in Fork Union, Virginia. DJ Jackson, hello all, nice to see you. Red Summit RF, they are free. I've taken 6 of them, free. Well, we were talking about something that was free. Yeah, Dave Samsel adds $5 to the chat revenue. Says, Dave, thanks for the live stream and blessings from Pennsylvania. AC3HT, I got within 3 miles of your state. We went to the a campground, KE0OG campground, that was in the upper right-hand corner of Ohio. It was very close to Pennsylvania. And then we went and saw a Mormon heritage site, the Kirtland Temple up in Kirtland, Ohio. And then we went over, I think the next day, to Talmadge, Ohio, where DX Engineering is located, and had a wonderful interview there, which I did actually capture the sound and video for. And so that will be up, I think, this week, if not early next week. My assistant next comes tomorrow, so we'll get that all taken care of. And that was a very good video that talks about their philosophy and so on, and everything that they're trying to do. They are going to be building a bigger showroom. The one that they have now is not the one that I thought they had from earlier pictures that I had, but still will be very interesting. Okay, WA7AL says hello. Smoberdine says greetings from Ohio. The hams, Skywarn, were very busy with the storm tornado reporting last night. This is Storm Watchers, there's a name for it. And it's a partnership between the Weather Service and amateur radio operators, storm spotters, that's what they're called. And when the Weather Service calls for storm spotters, this is a great way to use your amateur radio license to truly help, because you can be out there, literally the eye on the sky, and see where those tornadoes are dropping. Modern radars can detect rotary movements in the air, but they can't tell when it actually forms a funnel and hits the ground. You've got to have somebody there to see it. Okay, so those who were in Skywarn doing what they were doing because they've been to the meetings, they have gotten the training, they've been out there before, they go out with experienced people until they themselves become experienced people, and so on. Alita Lay says, thanks for helping me earn my extra. Well, congratulations on your extra, and you're certainly welcome. Red Summit RF Rockmite is a fun kit. So is the Pixie and 49er. I tried a Pixie once and I screwed it up. It was a $7 radio, something like that. I went to work on the QRP Labs radio. By the way, when I was at Dayton, I told him that I had destroyed my anyway, the 20-meter small one that's a little tiny thing like that. And I did that, and I told him how I did it. He handed me another one. They have changed the part number for the 5-volt regulator, that if it is blown, it will fail open rather than closed. Okay, let's see. Excited, my DX Commander arrives tomorrow. Any suggestions over and above the video? Take your time putting it together. Not only read the manual, but watch videos about it. And there are videos up on the DX Commander website. Just take your time with that thing and put it together right. I've told you my experiences with it. It's a good antenna. I mean, the unique thing about it is I don't know of any other vertical that does this. It's a fan dipole turned on its side, chop off the middle, drop it down to the ground, and put radials out. And that's what you've got, a fan vertical. It's really cool. I'm sorry, Royce. I'm conducting my live stream right now. He is the one member of our club that does not have a computer. So, the Bird Yagi, which is made commercially as the Spider Beam, is an easy antenna to make. Good. Alita Lay, congrats. Getting the extra is my next goal. Oh, that's from William Myers. Cody Callahan, Dave, wondering if you've worked ALE stuff before. I have not. There's some software that goes with that, and that's used for emergency communications and so on. So I need to do that, learn more about it. It says, I'm stationed at Fort Drum, New York, and looking for more information about the amateur side of ALE networking. Any non-Mars operators out there? If you are one of those out there, please respond to Cody. Alita says, well worth the work. John Ford, how many times can you bend an end fed back and forth before it becomes useless? I don't know. It's wire. It's made of wire. The commercial ones, I think, are made of stranded wire, which will take more of a bend, better wind, works better in the wind. Dave, could you use a directional coupler to do the same thing? Let's see. A directional coupler works most easily at microwave and above. And they do use them for precisely that reason that you're talking about there. Isolating one, like the SDR, from the transmitted signal. A directional coupler will do that. But I've only seen those at microwave. I don't know if you know of an HF version, it would do the same thing. Jeff Harris, Dave, planning on installing an HF and 2 meter 70 centimeter rig. Do I need 1 or 2 power supplies? Usually 1 will do it. The reference station rig is the Samlex 1235M, which I think it's 30 amps. That will run both radios on receive and 1 on transmit. So unless you're planning on transmitting on both at the same time, you're okay. Now, if you're going to if you have some special use case like a HF to VHF repeater or something like that, you got to have them both transmitting simultaneously. But that's not a use case that I've ever seen. So I would recommend that, yeah, you can use 1 power supply for both. It'll operate both on receive, plus 1 can transmit while the other's receiving on its band. Okay, Anthony Quick Energy says N1PLO from Connecticut. Good evening, Dave. Hello. Damic. Easy Dave, politics. Yeah, well, I think I actually stayed out of it this time. I'm just telling you from an economist's point of view how these things work. But as to who's responsible and the best way to approach it, that has been a bone of contention, not recently, but for a century or two. The U.S. started out in late 1700s, very late 1700s, with a national bank. And it was shut down as part of a populist revolt in the early 1800s and did not reappear until the 1920s. The Federal Reserve was created. The Federal Reserve is the nation's central bank. Now, the Treasury is the one who decides how much money there will be in circulation, not the Federal Reserve. But the Federal Reserve has the ability to set interest rates. And it's very intricate how all of that works. Now, there's lots of politics on the conservative side. I'm not talking about today's so-called conservatives. I'm talking about the classic conservatism. Wanted less government intervention in the economy, and the classic liberals have wanted more government intervention in the economy. So that's been the old classic liberal versus conservative split. Okay, and not to mention the rapidly developing housing bubble. Yeah, that's way out of control. Steve Genoway got my IC 7300 on the 18th of September. Quick ship back then, yes. Quick ship syncing methods and signals beams. Like a Navy man going for congressional office, yeah. Okay, Dom Nick says, KG4VXK says hello and thank you for your help. QDX, thank you. No, the QDX is the new one. It was the QCX. There was a QCX Mini, a QCX Plus, and then the original QCX. The QDX is the new one that's QRP on FT8. And I now have two versions of that. The first version from an Augie who sent me an unbuilt kit, and the third version that I got from Hans at Dayton. So they're in the pile to be built. I'm so far behind, it's ridiculous. Love the Dayton video, Dave. How is the bug working out for you? I haven't really sat down and worked with it a lot yet, but I will. I will do that. James McDonough says, New Jersey. We are sovereign. Hi, Dave. Another week. Great week of videos. Thank you. Neil Marsh, is he asking how many zigzags? There was a guy, I did a question for the Ask Dave column on where you have to bend a dipole antenna. It can't go straight out from the origin, but is bent. And I did another little video as a follow-up to that, where you actually bend it to 90 degrees in the air, and found out that the pattern works just fine. So somebody wanted me to start doing more variations on that, zigzagging back and forth. There is a way you can get into fractal antennas. The fractal antennas do work if you do them right. They don't if you don't. There was an article on a fractal 40-meter antenna in QST several years ago. And I didn't build one. I was kind of thinking about it, but didn't build one. So, I don't know. We'll have to play with that. That'd be very interesting to see. Okay. Hi, Dave from Kurt, N6QPT in Hope, Idaho. Red Summit RF. I can't use a bug. I need practice. They are strange. Yes, they are. And the new electronic keyers, when they started coming out in the 70s and 80s, you had two ways of keying, a straight key or a bug. And a lot of people who sent with bugs were very sloppy. There's something called an eerie swing, when your dits and das are too close to each other in length. So I'll do a video on all of that. Jamaica Dog, have you ever heard of a beverage antenna made of RG6 laid flat on the ground? I don't think that would work in Jamaica. The soil is too wet. If you are in a desert area, remember a beverage antenna, let me show everybody what a beverage is. The reason it's called a beverage antenna is not because you can drink it, but because it was created by a guy named Beveridge. You have your house or over here, and you take a wire that is maybe 6 to 10 feet off the ground. You want it like 8 feet so that people don't snag it. And it's multiple wavelengths long, okay? And it may or may not be terminated in its characteristic impedance. Now, the beverage antenna is an extremely poor antenna, but its saving grace is that it's an even worse antenna for noise. So the signal-to-noise ratio in the antenna is much better than that for other antennas. So you can't transmit with this because it's, like I said, a really poor antenna. But it will receive well and is used on lower frequencies like 160 and 80. And you need a lot of land to put one of these things out there, a lot of land. But they do work, and they're a classic antenna. Now, the point I wanted to mention is this. If you get into a desert area, Arizona, New Mexico, parts of California, parts of Colorado for that matter, there's something called an effective ground and a real ground. The real ground is the surface of the ground. But as far as the antenna physics works out, the top part of the soil, having so little water in it, is somewhat transparent for several feet to radio waves, and the effective ground can be 5, maybe even 10 feet below the physical ground. So in that case, if you lay out a wire on the ground, it can behave as though it's a few feet in the air. Okay, and in that case, you can create an antenna that's laying on the ground. Now, if you get into someplace like Jamaica, which has a lot of water, rains very frequently there, pure water does not conduct electricity. However, water in the ground is not pure. It's dirty. And it's got ions of this and that and rock and minerals and all that sort of thing. And it is, you're going to get some conductivity in the soil. It will increase the conductivity in the soil. And so laying an antenna on the ground will not work nearly as well. Hope that helps. Okay, Optical Man Jeff, KE0OG, has added $15 to the channel funds. And thank you very, very much for that. I appreciate that, Jeff. It says, thanks, Dave, for the live stream. Always a great way to spend Thursday evening and learn a lot. Keep up the great work. Optical Man Jeff is a regular person who puts money into the chat revenue and therefore the channel funds. And I thank you very, very much for your continuing enthusiastic support. I really appreciate it. Glenn Martin says hello from far west Missouri. We went through Missouri. I told my wife that what we need to do next year is go to Dayton and then take a few weeks, maybe 3 weeks, and drive all the way to Palmyra, New York, and do a Mormon history tour backtracking. And that would include far west Missouri. We went through on I-70 through Missouri, and I was thinking that, let's see, it's Bridgecom Systems is in Missouri, but it was kind of far south of I-70 for us to have made a convenient stop. Steve Genoway says he bought his 7300 a week after getting his General. It's a nice radio, it really is. Merrill, KK4HFJ, saying heading to bed since I get up at 0500. Woo! 73 to you, sleep well. Sleep quickly. Wendell Jackson, when trimming an end-fed half-wave antenna by folding the wire back on itself, must the wire be bare or can it be insulated? Contrary to intuition, yes, it can be insulated. Wrap it back around it like that. That's what I did with mine before it was subject to one of the giveaways. We gave it away. And it worked very well. I was very impressed with it. It was a My Antennas end-fed half-wave 80 through 10. It worked really well. I was surprised how well it worked. Let's see, Red Summit RF, I got a QDX from Hans at Dayton too. Good deal. DJ Jackson is asking us all to hit the like button for the video. And how are you coming on my Amico AC1 kit? I'm not. Oh, I've been very remiss on that. I had the table all laid out with it. And then we went to Dayton. I came back, and it was still all laid out for it. But the problem was that I was suddenly in a position where I needed to put a bunch of videos together. And so I had to gather it all up, put it out of the way, get all the video stuff spread out on the table so we could do videos. And when we get caught up with the videos, I'll pull it out again and see if I can't do that. I don't think it would take more than a day to finish. It's not a complicated kit. So we'll see what we can do for that. Yeah. Hello from WA4BAK from Warren. Tropical Latitude says, thank you, OG, from W9MDH. Andy Cowley, great show. Wendell Jackson, leave the insulation on it. Yes, absolutely, I agree. Dave Sunday says, greetings from the Central Highlands of Eastern Washington. You know, around Spokane or in that region somewhere. I understand you guys are actually getting some rain this year that's penetrating inland. That part, Northern California, the very Northern California, they need to get rain in Central California in order to send it down to Southern California for the agriculture. We talk about, oh, those nasty evil farmers using up all the water. Well, guess what, guys? Those nasty evil farmers are feeding us. They've got to have that water so they can feed us. And they are using the best techniques that are currently available. People argue with gravity-fed irrigation as being wasteful of water, and it is. Almost all the irrigation around here is gravity-fed. But one thing about gravity-fed irrigation is there's no carbon footprint. There's no energy expended on pumping water. It just flows. And all the fields out here have been very carefully over the years, over many years, decades, have been very carefully leveled so that if you fill up the ditch on this end, it will flow across the field. The runoff goes out the other end and on downstream to serve other farmers. And You know, sure, it would be more efficient use of water to do hydroponics or something like that. But when you've got 100 acres in corn, trying to do that hydroponically would be incredibly, prohibitively expensive. So they just use gravity feed for the water. Now, as we in the West run out of water, we've got to, maybe explore some of these other methods more. The country definitely needs more desalinization. The environmentalists are against it because there are a number of unsolved problems. For example, if you draw clean water out of salt water, you're left with brine, which is a very highly concentrated salt solution. But if you disperse that enough over the ocean, you'll never notice that you're taking fresh water out. Why? Because what happens right now is fresh water evaporates from the ocean, goes up into the clouds, goes over the land, rains, runs into the ocean. So you've got a gigantic worldwide desalinization plant called clouds right now that would dwarf any nuclear or whatever desalinization plant. But we're at the point where we're going to have to do something like that. I don't know how that'll work out in the long run. We'll see. It's interesting, in my life, I was born 6 years after the end of World War II, when airplanes had propellers, all of them, and air travel was barely beginning, and railroad travel kind of hit its heyday, and all of that, and television was just getting started, and the U.S. was broadly considered to be the most powerful nation on earth. And now, here at 70 years old, I've seen all of that change. So it's kind of sad, really, to tell you the truth. I hope for good things to happen. Great show, Dave, says Andy. Wendell Jackson says, leave the okay. Greetings from Central Highlands. Bill Malman leaves $20 in the chat revenue. Says, good talk tonight, Dave. Well, thank you very much, Bill. What is my favorite Hamfest other than Dayton? Well, I haven't been to very many of the big ones. PacificCon last year was a bit of a disappointment. I am told they only had about half the number of vendors show up. I was the treasurer for the Boulder Amateur Radio Club, and we had a Hamfest every year. It was just one day. And it was a big, hairy deal. Just from we charged an entry fee, and we made about, and charged for tables, and we made about $2,000 every year on that, which was enough to pay for our expenses. That was the only fundraising event we had, and it paid our expenses. And it used the whole Longmont Fairgrounds display building for that Swap Fest. It was a big, hairy deal. So, I don't know. I like the Reno one. I like the PacificCon. One that I would like to go to that I understand is like the second biggest. It's either between Huntsville and Orlando. Orlando is Hamcation, and Huntsville is Huntsville Hamfest. And they're also both very big, but they're far away from me to get to. I've got to finagle a way to get over to it. What is, okay, I got here late. Have you decided on the June giveaway? Yes, Jeff, I have. And I need to get this on the website. This is an MFJ AC line RFI filter. So this plugs in to your wall. That's a big sturdy cord. You can run fully 15 amps through this thing. And it's got all kinds of RFI devices in here to quell RFI coming into your radio that way. And I won this at Quartz Fest. Oh, Quartz Fest, another great ham fest. Very informal. This it was something I won at Quartz Fest at one of the giveaways. There are many prize giveaways. They almost have too many things to give away. And I don't need it in my station. My station is very, very quiet. I have about an S0 to S1 noise level at my station. So I'm going to go ahead and pass this on to somebody. Remember again how to enter. Send a postcard, a QSL card, or an envelope with a single sheet of paper in it that has your call sign, your name and the address to which you would want it shipped should you win, and your phone number. And so far this month I have only received 2 entries, so please enter. What I would suggest doing is going down to the post office and buying say 12 postcards, and then you can send in one a month to keep entering into the drawing. As it is to now, if I were to draw tonight, each one of these has a 50% chance of winning. So you want to narrow the chances, right? So be sure to enter. Okay, let's see. That's the June giveaway. Desal properly designed so it disperses into the Gulf is okay, but desal into a bay kills the bay. Yes. You're absolutely right. The water, the brine that comes out of it needs to be shipped far out to sea where the currents can mix it up and take it away. If you put it into a bay, you will kill the bay. Or you could send it to the Great Salt Lake. They're having a problem. The Great Salt Lake is disappearing. And the lake bed, of course, is salt. But it also has a lot of minerals in it, like arsenic and so on. And so dust storms will pick that up and plop it on the people in the Salt Lake Valley. So they're trying desperately to figure out how to refill the Great Salt Lake. To do that, they need a lot of water. They don't have a lot of water, so they're in a world of hurt. They almost need a desal. Well, it doesn't even need to be a desalinization plant. If someone could just ship them some seawater through a pipeline, it'd be a great thing. So, everywhere. Let's see. Dumb question, but when measuring legs for center-fed dipole, is the measurement made from the strain relief or the total length of the wire? A half-wave dipole is the length of the whole thing. Let me put that on the overhead so I can show you. If you're doing a half-wave dipole, okay, you've got center-fed, okay, and you've got this looped through a insulator at the end, okay, and you might have some wires down here like that, okay. The length of the dipole is from there to there, and that length is 1/2 wavelength, where lambda is the wavelength. And you compute 1/2 wavelength. 1/2 lambda equals 468, that's an 8, over the frequency in megahertz. And this will be in feet. Now, if you're doing this in meters, you would use 300 here, or 150, I can't remember which. But it's different, okay? But if you're going to do it in feet, you do that way. And this takes into account 0.95 velocity factor of light in or electromagnetic radiation in wire. There is a velocity factor associated with that. Okay. So let's go back to normal view. And strain relief of the total length of the wire. It's the total length of the wire. Now, remember the first rule of antennas is that everything affects everything. Okay. Now, I have heard people tell me with great certainty and sincerity that they can measure a dipole exactly and it'll be perfect when they put it up. And I say baloney, because the center impedance depends on the height above ground. Okay, so if you move it up and down, you will change the impedance, and therefore the SWR. And you're going to need to tune an antenna in place, even if it's only a few inches, to get it to resonate right where you want it to resonate. Okay, Orlando second biggest, Huntsville third biggest. Boy, I'd sure like to go to one of those. Neil Marsh points out that we're of the same vintage. Ralph says 73 to Dave and everyone from K4TA. It's almost time for us to wrap up here. KK4FLA, I'm sorry that I'm late tonight. My father made his living in water resources and solar power. Which is better, Patreon or here for donations? The best is via PayPal. Here, let's see, Patreon would be next best. And here is the bottom of the barrel because they take the highest percentage. If you go PayPal, they don't take too much. Go to dcasler.com/support, and it will show you different ways that you can provide support for this channel via channel funds. And through here, that definitely, the way I see this is I get my tiny cut of Google advertising, which comes in every month, and this chat revenue will show up as part of that. So, thank you. Was great visiting with you and meeting your XYL Sunday morning at Dayton from W5JCS. Well, very good. Nice to see you again. Dave Sund, KG0OG. I've been to CPAC a couple times and was impressed by the speakers. It's rather expensive due to being held in Seaside, Oregon. Too much else to spend money on in the area. Yes, I think that's up near where K7AGE lives. He was at Dayton. I didn't see him. Now, I did run into Josh Nass, or Hoshnazi, from Ham Radio Crash Course. I did run into him. And there was one other YouTuber I ran into, plus Steve Goodman, who literally works for the ARRL, running their learning program. He's my interface to get videos up in there. Okay, your website shows this. Yeah, I know. I had that all set up. I need to go. It used to be with WordPress, you could type Alt 0216 and get the /0. But now I've got to go back and replace all of those with the HTML equivalent, which is ampersand /O, or it might be O/. Put that, and that, if I put that in there, will show up in the text as a /O, like that. Now I have to look up which one, if the O comes before the slash, it might be O/. But that's how you do it. So all the old ones where I had the Alt 0216 have turned that weird, strange thing in there. I'll have to fix that. Hamfest coming up in Fayetteville, North Carolina in August. Hope there are members of the 82nd Airborne that want to get rid of some amplifiers. By the way, Jamaica Dog is my internet name. I live in North Carolina. Mike Oswald called for dinner. See you next time. A nearby shed will change resonance of a dipole. Yes, it will. Green River Greg, thanks for the answer. Love the videos. Red Summit RF, I was in the Airbnb with Josh Naz, also a humble YouTuber. Well, very good. I'd love to go to Quartz Fest. Well, it's in Arizona in January, which is the very nice, cool weather there. You'll need a sweater for the evenings. But Red Summit RF, if you are a YouTuber, why don't you get your information to me, and maybe we can do a Skype between us and see what we can do. We are out of time. Thank you so much. This has been a very enjoyable conversation this evening. This is always one of my favorite times of the week, and I'm particularly buoyed up today, not just from all the sun I got, but because I had 5 very nice landings in a row today. And that was all the landings. All of them were good. The landings I did on Tuesday were really scary, but these I did a lot better. So, and Red, email me at askdave@arrl.org. Ask Dave with no hyphen at arrl.org. That way I'll be sure to get it. And other people, please send me questions to that, because it's hard to find questions to do the column about. So I'm going to say 73 to all of you, and see you next time.